Everyone, I hope you're doing well. This week we're going to be talking about social media influencers, although it's kind of a carryover from what we discussed last week with the broad economics of social media. And if you haven't already, you'll get that, I think, once you watch the Generation Like documentary. For now, at least. I mean, if somebody's watching this in the future, like in semesters when I've changed up the class, it might not be true. But for now, the only time I'm going to ask you to watch like a full-length documentary is this week. But I wouldn't ask you to watch it if I didn't think it had like super valuable information that I really couldn't find in readings depicted so well. And that's what I want to focus on mostly here, although some of the stuff I'm going to talk about obviously overlaps with some of the readings you've had about what are social media influencers or micro celebrities and what do they do and how do they make money and things like that. But anyway, so one of the first things, and you're going to have to talk about this in your worksheet this week, one of the first things I wanted to kind of, I guess, alert you to, right, is this whole transition that we've had in the past decade or so where basically, it used to be marketers used to market to consumers, right? People used to try to advertise to you and get you to buy things, and that's still true. People still want you to buy things. But thanks to social media, what's happened is now businesses, instead of just simply marketing to you, are also trying to get marketers to, or consumers to, participate in the marketing process. And like a lot of things, because social media changes so rapidly, it's hard to find up-to-date things. A lot of things in documentary are kind of dated. They talk about the release of the Hunger Games movies. And I mean, not to say Hunger Games is like dated, but of course, we don't have any more Hunger Games movies to look forward to. Nonetheless, I think that example that they use is still really current. They show you how by taking advantage of fan energy, right? These fans who like the movie so much that they're willing to share all these different types of content related to the Hunger Games. In that way, they can actually get consumers, fans, to kind of be part of the marketing team, although of course not directly. So one of the things that they showed was of course them having contests that fans could participate in, like if they share so much content, right? And that's just a way of amplifying whatever marketing message you have and getting it out to other consumers who are going to be interested in that content. But some of it was a little bit more devious. And when I say devious, more, a lot of these companies, what they're trying to do is create the illusion of sort of authentic experiences that happen on social media. To say like, oh, a trailer just leaked, right? Well, chances are that trailer didn't leak. What happened was they called it a controlled brush fire, right? They're timing the release of different types of content to make it seem, right, like things are just kind of cropping up. And the reason they want to do that, right, is because if it seems authentic and people get more excited about sharing it themselves, right? Even if we saw, and for instance, in this documentary, that people are definitely willing to share content, even if they know that they're kind of part of the marketing system. Nonetheless, I think that people don't like to feel like they're necessarily used in the process to the extent that they are. So it still, I think, behooves companies to not let their social marketing show, if you will. So there's a little bit of that. But then we get down to actually, I'll tell you what, we'll talk about influencers last. Sorry, the other thing I wanted to point out about that documentary was that I think that in some ways, this documentary did a really good job of illustrating some of the things that you read about last week in terms of how big data works, in terms of how the things that you do, the little digital footprint that you leave behind, can translate into income and revenue. The Ian Somerhalder example, is that his name? Ian. He was on Lost years ago, for those of you who watched Lost, but I didn't really watch Vampire Diaries or anything. He was not a micro celebrity, he was an actual celebrity who had hired this social media firm to help him with his social media analytics, right? Well, so the question is like, why does this guy need like a social media consultant, and how can he afford them, right? Like, why would I pay somebody to help me with that? Well, what you saw was that what they were trying to do is look at the type of people who had liked him and the type of people who follow him and engage with his content when he posts pictures of puppy dogs or whatever. But then a social media analyst is able to go in and say, the same people that liked this content, they also liked, I can't remember what it was now, but Dove beauty products, and they also liked Oreos, and they also liked, what brand is this? Polar Seltzer. Little product placement there. Micro celebrity, that's me. Or Tractor Supply. Oh, can't do it. It's like a mirror. Tractor Supply. That'll come in later. I'll tell you about that in a second. The point is they can say, everybody who likes Ian Somerhalder, or 25% of the people who like this content also like Tractor Supply. So that is a red flag where it's like, hey, maybe we should make some endorsement deals, right? Where what the hell is his name? Ian Somerhalder. Ha ha ha. Whatever his name is. Ian Somerhalder goes to Tractor Supply, and then it's like capitalizing on that triangulation of fans, right? Or maybe they should hire him to do some marketing for them, right? And so it's kind of like a win-win situation. And the point I hope you understand, and if you didn't get it last week, it was more visual this week, is that those likes translate into income through the information that they provide about people, right? So what big data is being able to look for trends, and it doesn't have to be likes as we talked about. It could be you using your customer loyalty card or whatever. But the point is those likes translate into income because the information that they reveal about you, the information that everything reveals about you, can be combined with other information to kind of create a profile. And it's that profile that helps marketers target you. And when I say marketers, hopefully this is obvious now. It doesn't necessarily have to mean, I don't know, like Chrysler or some big company, right? A marketer could be a celebrity. A marketer could be a politician, right? Politicians, the way that they target people now is the same way. They might be looking for a very different type of profile, but they can use data in the exact same way where they can, again, see different trends and like if the same people that like X like Y, and they can use that information to try to create messages and find people that fit that profile. And so it's a more precise type of targeting, right, to get their messages across, but whoever it is. Okay, and then the main reason I assigned it, and the reason I assigned this documentary this week, is because I wanted to start talking about social media influencers. And this is where the content in the course is going to start shifting into what I think is its core, the idea of professional identity. As I said before, I don't want to stick with just professional identity because not everybody's going to be using social media for their work. But I do think in this day and age, everybody's using social media. And even if they're not using it with the specific goal of getting some sort of professional benefit or something like that, they still have to think about their social media use in terms of how it's going to affect both their professional and personal life. And what I think is interesting about influencers is that, and it's funny, I'm calling them influencers. I don't know why, because I was taught to call them micro celebrities. And what I like about that is celebrity Ian What's-His-Face is a celebrity, right? He became a celebrity because he's a great actor or he's hot. He is hot, I think. Or because he did something extraordinary, right? He was on some popular TV shows or something like that. In the past, our celebrities have been celebrities because they did something that merited celebrity. That started changing a little bit with reality television, right? Reality television is when the common man could get famous just for being on TV, even if they had no talent whatsoever. So, I don't mean to say that there aren't celebrities, that all celebrities have talent. But the point is they're celebrities because they've been sort of selected by our mass media to be celebrities. A micro celebrity is somebody who becomes a celebrity through the use of social media. They're a micro celebrity because it's kind of on a micro scale. It's for the audience on social media. Now, micro could still mean millions of followers, but they're what you would call self-made celebrities. They didn't become a celebrity because they got they were on The Bachelor or on Survivor or some reality TV show, right? they generated their own celebrity by posting videos to YouTube or developing a big following on Twitter or whatever the case is, right? So that's why we call them micro celebrities. The, the name influencer, though, implies something very important, which is sort of the role of micro celebrities in our economy. And again, this is another trend in marketing that we're seeing where, marketing companies, instead of relying just on, traditional mass communication channels, can use these micro celebrities in the same way that they use regular celebrities, but obviously the micro celebrity ecosystem is a lot more interactive, and so they have to use them differently. And I think that you saw a little bit of that in this documentary. So for instance, you saw what's his name? Tyler Oakley, right? Very famous micro celebrity. And you saw sort of how he, rose up from just doing silly little videos in his bedroom and, his college dorm or whatever. And then because he, sort of crossed the threshold of having a certain number of followers, that translates into influence. So then what happens? People like Taco Bell are like, would you please eat this taco while you were making your next YouTube video? And what's I think is really interesting, and Douglas Rushkoff, who I normally don't like, the guy who narrated that documentary, he's like very stuck on himself. But I do think he makes a really interesting point that, if you think about how you have to market things on traditional media, it's not always good to look like a sellout. But nowadays, right, especially if you're a micro influencer, if you're able to sell out, if you're important enough that Taco Bell wants to give you some sort of endorsement deal, that's not necessarily a bad thing. That actually ups your street cred, right? Now, the other interesting thing about this is when we talk about endorsement deals, right, they're not necessarily getting deals all the time. I mean, I know your article mentions this, some influencers get really nice payouts for being influencers and being themselves and going on and mentioning products or wearing them or whatever. But some of them are a little smaller, like the baby scumbag skater kid. Right. I mean, he wasn't getting, at least at that point, he wasn't getting like these really big offers from companies. They would just occasionally give him like a free skateboard or some new socks or something, and he would just get to wear them. Right. So I think it happens on different levels. But part of the way that these influencers operate too is they have to, just like the main celebrity that we looked at, find things that are like brand consistent, right? Find maybe other influencers and they can do cross promotions with. And you saw, for instance, the same social media analyst who was trying to help the celebrity was also trying to help this up and coming musician, right? And how do they do that? Try to find other sort of like grassroots musician influencer types so that they can cross promote in each other's videos and things like that. And a lot of this is, I will admit, I don't mean to say it's all new. It's there's nothing new under the sun, right? Some of the stuff is kind of old, like the whole idea of product placement. But in this case, product placement, I think is much more obvious, and it's okay to be obvious because again, it's almost as if like there's a symbiotic relationship between getting an endorsement deal, looking more popular, getting more followers, and then getting more deals, et cetera, et cetera. Anyway, okay, the articles actually go into a lot more details of the nitty gritty about numbers and how all these things work. But I do want you to start thinking, if you haven't already, for your worksheet this week about a social media influencer that interests you. It doesn't necessarily have to be somebody you follow. I don't really follow a lot of influencers or whatever. Just find somebody. My only requirement is that it's not somebody that was mentioned in the video or in the readings, in part just to expose me to some I don't know, up and coming influencers that interest people, but there's a lot of them that you like PewDiePie or some of these big names that we've probably already heard of. Those are all fair game, but it could be on a much smaller level. The one I would pick right now, this is where the tractors, darn it, here. This is where the Tractor Supply thing comes in. I recently became a chicken keeper. I keep them in my garage. They haven't really gone outside yet because they're young or whatever, but I'm getting into chicken culture, chicken owner culture, which by the way, you talk about like cats on the internet, chickens on the internet are like ridiculous. Talk about that later. Anyway, as part of my journey, I started to follow the Chicken Chick. Um, and she is quite a sophisticated micro celebrity. She is a woman with lots of chickens. And literally every day she'll do a Facebook Live. Some of them go on YouTube after, and she has some things on YouTube, but Facebook Live seems to be her main thing. She, my husband will message me sometimes and be like, Chicken Chick is live, you know, and I'm like, I'll wait, I'll watch it later. She just does live videos of like her backyard with a ton of chickens. But you know, she says, repeats the same thing over and over again, advice about chickens, the way she does it. And she does have a very clear brand. She always says things like, keep it simple and easy peasy lemon squeezy. And right, like her whole ness is like, oh, chicken keeping is easy and don't overdo it and don't be too fancy with it, and which is ironic because if you see her whole layout, I mean, she has got the fanciest chicken palace. So for her to say keep it simple, you know, but that's sort of the fantasy, I guess. But she's, like I said, she has a clear brand, and it shows in terms of not just like the slogans she does, but also the advice she gives, even the way she dresses. I mean, she has a very short haircut. She's, if you see her, because normally the camera's pointed away, she always has very sort of like laid back attire, but nice, you know. That's the other thing I would say. She's simple but put together. But her brand is very different than the Martha Stewart brand, right? Where everything has to be sort of put together. She's got more of the authenticity of a micro celebrity. Anyway, the way she makes money is very clear. She is always doing like she always mentions Purina feed that she uses for her chickens, and you're like, okay, so product placement, because she has like the feed bags, and she uses them in her coop and stuff. She mentions it many times. She doesn't like push it, but she always happens to mention that she uses Purina. And then last week she had like a Purina scientist, like nutritionist, do like an interview with her or whatever. So it's very clear, right? She's got endorsement deals. She's got one with Tractor Supply. She's always mentioning them, talking about how she's going there for book things. So I'm assuming, if they're not, I mean, I don't know if they actually have her on the payroll, but I'm assuming she's definitely getting some sort of compensation for her friendly, you know, mentioning of them. The other thing I'll say is she also has written a couple of books now, and I don't know which came first, the books or the micro celebrity status. I guess that could be interesting, but you know, she does have a revenue stream from that, and so, you know, she's able to promote her books on her live feed, but then the live feed, you know, cycles into the books, vice versa. So anyway, that's the type of stuff I want you to bring into your own analysis. It doesn't need to be a whole lot. But I will say that, you know, at the end of the semester, I want you to do a much more thorough analysis of some sort of social media influencer. And this doesn't have to be it, but the one that you choose to write about this week. And again, just brief synopsis could be it. So if you want, you know, start thinking long term. And when you're thinking about who you want to write about, or I don't mean to, I'm making it sound like it's supposed to be a research paper. It's really not. It's just supposed to be kind of thinking about how the micro celebrities that you watch in the documentary and you read about your readings, how their techniques and the ways that they generate revenue equate here. Oh, and then the last thing, and then I'll shut up, I promise, is branding. Next week, we're going to be talking about a brand and branding. And I do think that all of these micro celebrities have a brand. I mean, and again, that's how they have to figure out who they can, what other influencers they can get in cahoots with and everything. And I don't expect anybody in this class to be a micro celebrity, although if it is somebody in this class that's working on their micro celebrity badge or whatever, congratulations. But I do, the reason I like to study micro celebrities, I totally should have opened with this, is because even if you don't have a huge following, even if you're not a goddess like the Chicken Chick, everybody now has some sort of brand on social media. And I actually think that to some extent this is, you know, whether it's deliberate or not, whether you're actually trying to cultivate a specific type of image or brand for yourself, I think you have one. And we're going to talk more about that this week. But a nice way to start is to start thinking about people that you follow on social media. I want you to start thinking about, like, what is their brand? What is it that they represent? what's the sort of consistent feelings that you get when you watch them? What are they trying to like put out there? Like Baby Scumbag's brand was, you know, he was skating vulgarity, you know, I mean, he's had sort of like a crassness to him. Tyler Oakley, you know, was sort of fanboyish, right, is like his brand. You know, start trying to think about, when you look at those influencers that you're considering this week, what is their brand? What's their essence that they continually deliver every time you watch them? And then next week, we'll start talking about self-branding, where you can start thinking about what your brand is. So, okay, now I'm going to shut up. Okay, bye.